Well, it's just after 5 and I just gassed up and heading out to the Balloon Fiesta. I don't know what kind of traffic it's going to be this morning. Of course, I expect a big rush, so we'll see what happens. Parking, getting into the balloon field is always the challenge. This time I went a slightly different way and I got in pretty quick. It is just now 5:30 in the morning. So, and actually it's not really that cold, surprisingly. Not bad at all. Well, here we are. You have to kind of get a sense of the scale of this place. They've been doing this Balloon Fiesta since like around 1973 approximately. And the city's been involved and they have this really big facility. This thing is ran like a well-honed machine, to overuse a metaphor. The grounds out here at the Balloon Fiesta are supported by the city and a lot of volunteer work. And so here's a great example. This building, really great building. This is the pilots pavilion. So years ago they had a big white tent for the pilots, right? No, now they have a permanent structure. The Balloon Fiesta is a huge economic boon to Albuquerque, and it's one of the most photographed events in the entire world. So, you know, it's as stupid as Albuquerque's politics have been over the last 100 years or so. This is one of the better things they've done. They got donuts. They got donuts than pilots do. You don't fly without donuts. And that reminds me, the first thing you do when you get to Balloon Fiesta, when it's dark out, Dawn Patrol hasn't launched yet, the first thing you're doing is you're going to get something hot to drink, something good to put in your stomach. And there's nothing better than a breakfast burrito, which we're kind of pioneered, I think, out here at the Balloon Fiesta as a grab-and-go kind of a quick breakfast. Some hash brown potatoes, some eggs, cheese, maybe a little chili or whatever, wrapped in a tortilla. Yep, nothing better than that. So this is the Midway, where all the vendors are. Good. What do we got? Solar power battery packs?
Yes, sir. Have you ever seen them before?
No, this is cool.
Yes.
Oh, look at that. What's your name?
My name's Joshua.
Hey, Joshua.
What's your name?
Joe.
Joe, nice to meet you, Joe.
Yeah.
You need one today?
No, just you're on YouTube.
All right, cool. All righty, have a good one, Joe.
All right. But of course, food isn't the only thing that they have here. Ooh, look at this.
Isn't it beautiful?
It's beautiful.
Every one of them is beautiful, especially this one.
Oh, because it's the Patriots.
Yes. Oh, you don't have Patriots on.
Oh, yeah. That's fine. Pick your team, right? The first thing I need is a cup of coffee. That's right. This is what it's about right here. Hot coffee on a cool morning. We got our hot coffee, and basically right now the job is to keep warm and basically wait until Dawn Patrol starts to launch, and then as there starts to get light over the Sandia Mountains, we'll start to see the balloons inflate. This is the way the Midway is. It's like a fair that happens at 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning, and this is the early phase when people are trying to stay warm. Albuquerque gets kind of cool overnight in early October, and then just before sunup you get this canyon mountain breeze coming down out of the Sandia Mountains. Kind of the cold air kind of starts settling out of the mountain, so you get this kind of cold breeze just before dawn flowing through here. People kind of wear their heavy clothes and bundle up, but everybody's waiting for the light, the sun to start peeking over the Sandias, and then the balloons launch. Today is going to be mass ascension, so they're going to try to launch as many of the balloons as they can. Probably on the order of 700 or 800 balloons, hot air balloons, will be launching, and so that's always exciting, a very photogenic event. They're doing live television.
Probably not going to happen. We'll bring that possible up to 40 miles per hour, and by Friday morning, things will start to calm down, so we'll keep you updated on that.
It's the local CBS affiliate. I think all 3 of the major networks are out here this morning doing a live broadcast.
Hello. I cannot make
Are you the watcher of the chair?
Not exactly. Yeah, I'm the grip. I'm the guy who's supposed to pull all the cables and everything.
So Blake's Slaughterburger is a local hamburger chain. They've been around since probably the 1950s, but that's one of the landmarks of Albuquerque, Blake's Slaughterburger. Good stuff, and they got pretty good breakfast burritos. But this midway goes on and on and on, the full length of the balloon field. The balloon field area where they launch the balloons is grassed in, and it's about, I think, 16 acres maybe. But it took many years to improve this site. When they first moved the Fiesta out here back in, I think, the late 70s, early 80s, it was dirt. It was a dirt field for a few years, and then they finally worked a deal to get some reclaimed water from the sewer treatment plant to be used for watering the grass, because grass doesn't grow out here in the desert Southwest naturally. Yes, everybody's taking their picture next to the Albuquerque sign. So this is a local weatherman on the NBC channel. His name is Steve Stucker, and he's been a long time.
Trading cards?
Sure, he's been a long time supporter of the Fiesta, and he dresses up with his smock with all of his balloon pins and his balloon hat, and he's a real character. Steve Stucker is good people. So you probably can't see out there in the field, but there are probably half a dozen or more balloons inflating right now. This is called Dawn Patrol. They've been doing this for about 24 years, tradition. I don't know where the thing started. I have a feeling it was related to a Snoopy comic where Snoopy used to fly the doghouse as a World War I ace pilot. But anyways, they have Dawn Patrol. They fly the balloons in the night before sunup, and of course they have the FAA required strobe lights on the balloon.
Pretty cool. ODL hours, so
Looks like you have the most important job in the field.
right? Got my counterweight here.
You
He
do
helps.
have your counterweight.
He helps.
Yeah.
The extra 20 pounds is appreciated.
So they can't launch from the field without a launch director. They call them zebras, giving them permission, so make sure they're clear above the balloon. Dawn Patrol is aloft. So what brings 100,000 people out into an empty grassy field on the north end of Albuquerque in October? Well, this is what it is. It's the Balloon Fiesta, and of course Dawn Patrol is flying. It is an absolutely gorgeous day, gorgeous morning. It's going to be a wonderful morning for the balloons. So calm. It was a little bit humid this morning. There was some moisture in my car, and it looks like from the look of it, it's just absolutely beautiful. The weather's going to be perfect, and we might have the legendary Albuquerque box. Okay, this is what it's all about right here. This is a breakfast burrito. This has bacon and green chili, New Mexico green chili in it. Look at that. Oh yeah. That and a hot cup of coffee, you'll do just fine. So Dawn Patrol is aloft. There's starting to be light over the Sandias. Sunup will be probably in a half an hour or so. So this is kind of the interim period where we're kind of waiting for the mass ascension to start, and all the balloon crews start laying out their balloons and inflating. So over the years, this event has had numerous corporate sponsors, and back in the 1990s, maybe early aughts, it was known as the Kodak International Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta, and there was a whole bunch of vendors like selling film back in the 90s maybe at the Fiesta. It was a huge thing, selling film at the Fiesta. Of course, those days are pretty much passed us by. Kodak is no longer a corporate sponsor, of course, but here we are. Everybody has their phones. Some of us have the GoPro cameras or whatever we're using to shoot video on. As far as the actual dawn patrol, most of the balloons are kind of either hanging around the field or drifting to the northwest, so that's kind of indicative of the kind of breeze we're going to have this morning. And I mentioned earlier about this thing called the Albuquerque box, and what that is, it's because Albuquerque is in this river valley with mountains to the east. The airflow patterns at lower levels are kind of unique in the sense that air currents flowing at one direction at a certain altitude, and then at a higher altitude you can find an air current going 180 degrees the different direction. So if the balloonist chooses to, he can fly this box-like pattern, go drift one way, raise an elevation, drift the other way, and circulate over the field really, and almost find whatever direction he wants to go. He can just find it and go that way. So it's kind of a unique situation here meteorologically. Now, the box typically breaks down when there is some kind of a storm front or weather front moving in, but today I think we're going to probably have a box. It's looking really calm out there. So the challenge out here for both the balloonists and the spectating public is they're trying to launch as many balloons as they can in a short period of time, and so they have their envelopes laid out. And in the case of a lot of the trucks, they're going to have a tow line or some line attached between the truck and the gondola of the balloon. And so you don't want to really walk on the person's balloon envelope, and you also don't want to walk on the tarp that they're spreading out. So the public has to kind of find their little way between the little gaps between the balloons as they're setting up. So it gets real busy out here, but it's a lot of fun. These balloonists don't have the FAA required night lights, beacons, so they're waiting for official sunrise before they can launch. So, but there's a line of them here that have inflated, and they are just waiting to go up. So these little markers tells the balloonists where they need to park to set up to fly. The whole field is laid out on a grid, and this marks their spot. And this is the typical setup for a balloonist. This is a Chevy 2500 pickup, and they can fit the gondola and the balloon envelope and their gasoline-powered inflation fan, and all that fits pretty well into the back of a truck.
It has to be in some position.
Well, this balloonist here is waiting for the official sunrise and for one of the Zebra launch directors to give him the sign to launch. And so the Zebra's job is to make sure the air above the balloonist is free of other balloons, because the balloonist in his gondola can't see above him. His own balloon blocks his view above him. So they have to have a launch director that can look above and make sure it's safe to launch. Because you don't want a balloon from below rising up into the gondola of a balloon that's already in the air. It could be catastrophic.
And what they represent is the 13 original balloons from the first Fiesta. And so there's 13 of them. And then after they go off, we'll start the mass ascension.
I always like walking through these narrow canyons between massive billowy balloons. So this is the crown line attached to the top of the balloon, and there's a strong person at the end of that line. The most important guys on the crew right here.
We're good anchors anyway.
That's right.
So one of the special things about the Balloon Fiesta for myself as an Albuquerquean, besides all the history of it and all that, is the fact that we have all this huge expanse of grass. And you guys in the more humid parts of the country and of the world maybe don't realize how rare that is or how special that is, but we have to grow grass specifically. It doesn't grow on its own. There's not enough moisture out here in the desert, high desert southwest, not enough rainfall, so we have to water the grass with drinking water. That's right, but it's kind of nice to see 16 acres of grass in the desert southwest. Well, at least it's watered from recycled water or whatever. Is there any special treatment you do to get your hair to look like that?
120.
This is the part of the fiesta I really love, is when you're inside a forest of massive balloons. There are just balloons everywhere you look. It's balloons. Like a forest of giants. And of course, photography is really big here at the Fiesta, as you can imagine. Yes, even us lowly videographers still have our moments. The Balloon Fiesta is not only about taking pictures of balloons, but it's also one of the best opportunities in smaller western cities like Albuquerque, where we don't have a whole lot of foot traffic. It's a great opportunity to do street photography, right? Photography of people in public, and I've done quite a bit of that in the last few years, and it is a lot of fun. But it's not just about colorful balloons, it's about the people watching.
It has rained every day in England.
So you didn't bring it though?
No,
you're not going to take credit for it.
No, the stuff that I left behind, you wouldn't want. Thank you. Cheers.
Well, the sun has now peeked up from behind the sandias. This whole thing started in the early 1970s at a local shopping center. They were celebrating the 50th anniversary of KOB AM 770 AM radio, and a local aviation guy, Sid Cutter, and some other guys got together and they got a little hot air balloon gathering at the shopping center, and a whole bunch of people from the community, including me when I was a teenager in high school, showed up at that first balloon launch. And it was so popular that the next couple years they decided to have an international balloon championship at the state fairgrounds, launching from the infield of the horse racing track of the state fairgrounds, which is in the middle of southeast Albuquerque. And this is the early 1970s, and there were international pilots who had gathered for these first several balloon meets in Albuquerque. And this is the Cold War. I need to remind you probably that Sandia Base, Kirtland Air Force Base, Monsanto Base were all highly classified bases involving nuclear weapons. And so because of the way ballooning happens, you don't really know where you can land and wherever the wind takes you. They had international pilots landing in the restricted area of Monsanto Base behind the barbed wire with guards with machine guns, and they weren't too happy about that. So a couple years later they decided to move this whole balloon meet out to the north edge of town. Originally it was on a field south of Osuna Road, and then they moved it out to a field just on the other side of Paseo del Norte, and then they moved out to just south of Alameda, and now it's at the permanent location north of Alameda Road. So, and the city has supported it over the years and built facilities, and because they understand the economic impact, you know, for all this. So look at these balloons. So now we're at the point of the morning where the mass ascension is starting to wind down a little bit. The last of the few waves are launching, and now you have this 16 acres of grass with 100,000, 200,000 people on it, and all of a sudden you realize, dang, everybody's going to head to their car at the same time. So what do? Do you leave early? Do you leave when they do and get in this massive traffic jam? Or do you hang out for another hour and just kind of sit down, relax, and maybe get yourself a cup of coffee and just kind of people watch? That's kind of what I do. So the thing you have to think about is every one of these balloons that's flying in the air right now, there's a chase crew, a bunch of people in a big pickup truck or a van that has to get off the site and go chase the balloons and be there when they land so they can help get the balloon down safely without it being dragged into power lines or something like that. So getting those trucks from where they launched at on the field off site is a real challenge sometimes. Just getting the trucks through the crowd. There's a series of roads, a grid of roads, paved roads that crisscrosses the grassy balloon field, but there's a couple 100,000 people out here right now, and so getting those trucks off the field is a real challenge, and then getting them out off the site and through all that traffic that is around here is a challenge also. So that is a racing balloon. That's the kind of a balloon that is used in competitions where they have to change altitude very suddenly. That shape, that long skinny shape, helps them to have a high rate of climb, and they can maneuver very fastly. Most of the balloons are sport balloons. They have the more globular shape, and then there are a number of special shape balloons, as you probably saw earlier. All kinds of special shapes, like right there. The special shapes balloons are really popular. But those oblong racing balloons are really like the Ferraris of the hot air balloon world. So the Albuquerque box is not quite in effect this morning. The balloons that are taken off on that end of the field are at ground level. They're drifting south. And then as they rise up, they're coming back north. So there's a little bit of a box effect, but you got to kind of come down close to the ground level to get the southerly wind again. Well, it's definitely that moment in the Balloon Fiesta morning where the field is getting pretty well empty of balloons. There's a few last ones launching, and you got a bunch of people still milling about. It's kind of surreal, and actually it's a great opportunity right now to do some street photography. Street meaning public people photography. And it's one of those venues where people don't really object as much because it's expected out here that people are going to be taking pictures. So, you know, nobody really says much if you are a little bit discreet about public photography out here. So it's kind of a fun opportunity. The last few years, when I have come out here, I don't come out here every year, but when I do, I spend usually more time now trying to document the people side of everything. The crews and the pilots and the zebras, the launch directors, and of course the people out here. That's what's so fun about it.
Nobody around us. Thank you, ma'am.
Watch out, guys. This is going to drop.
Well, it's about 8:45, and I think I'm going to head to the exit and join the snarl of traffic, trying to get back out onto the streets of Albuquerque that weren't really built for these kinds of crowds. This is a big city event in a medium-sized city, so we're not really prepared traffic-wise. It's always a big jam up, but it's worth coming out here. Maybe not every year, but certainly once every couple years if you're a long-time resident like I am. Well, this was the 2019 Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta Wednesday morning mass ascension. Okay, guys, until next time, stay creative and have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye.